I'm Corey Stone, I'm 26 years old and I'm a second year medical student at Bond University. Prior to studying medicine, I studied commerce. I did a majors in accounting and finance, and I worked in that industry up in Brisbane for 2 years. I've lived in the city my whole life, so I hadn't really had much exposure to rural or remote lifestyle up until I went to Kununurra. In my first year of medical school, I took the opportunity to participate in a student philanthropic trip out to Kununurra, where we spent 2 weeks with the local kids running or assisting an organisation called Save the Children with a holiday program. During the holiday program, we organised sporting activities for them, cooking classes, boys' nights, girls' nights, lots of sports. They love their sports out there. I have to say it was the most eye-opening experience I've had in my entire life, seeing the difference, the contrast between rural and remote and metropolitan and city lifestyles. And it was the most rewarding 2 weeks probably of my life. Working in Kununurra in a remote community is incredibly different to working in a metropolitan area. There's a real sense of community out in these rural areas, which you don't really get in the city. There's a genuine care for one another, which I've never experienced before. Everyone sort of knows each other's business, but in a good way. They're looking out for each other. You also get to know people a lot quicker. I only spent 2 weeks out in Kununurra, but I built some incredible relationships whilst out there, and I feel like I really had an influence on some people's lives while I was there, even though I was only there for a short amount of time. And I don't think that that sort of thing happens or is as likely to happen in the city as it is out there. Going out with an awareness that things are very different out there. Resources aren't as easy to come by as they are here. In the city, we take for granted just being able to walk down to the shops and pick up a newspaper and that sort of thing, but it's not like that out there. We have a great understanding of what's good for us and what's not good for us, and in my experience out there, they don't have that same level of understanding and education. So if you ask them a simple question, I asked kids a simple question like, name for me 2 green vegetables. They couldn't name for me 2 green vegetables, which was quite astounding for me. And again, understanding and appreciation for education. Out in this area, the absentee rate is something like 90%, so these kids aren't going to school and they don't appreciate the importance of education. So I think going out with an open mind and appreciating that there are these differences in these communities is very, very important. My best experience working out in Kununurra is also actually quite a sad story. We were playing basketball one day with a group of kids. They were all aged between sort of 6 and 15. And one of the 8-year-old girls got hit on the back of the leg by a rugby ball. And she started crying and we couldn't work out why. The ball didn't hit her that hard, and she wouldn't explain to us what had happened. And she turned around and she was bleeding quite profusely from the back of her leg through the shorts, and we couldn't really touch her to lift up and see what was there. So we took her over to the elder and asked her, you know, what can we do? Something needs to be done. And the elder said to us, or she didn't even say anything to us, she said to the girl, just go home. And we had been to this girl's house the previous day, and she lived in a tin hut out on the reservation. And we knew that no one would be home and that home wasn't a sterile or safe environment for her. So we ended up taking her inside to the nurse, and they dressed the wound up and gave her some painkillers for children. And after that, she was fine. She was running around on the basketball court and she was happy again. It was a very rewarding thing for me to see that girl was helped, rather than she was sent back to her house where nothing could be done and nothing would be done, and that it got infected. So while it was very sad to see that that's how they deal with those issues out there, it was also very rewarding to know that we were able to create a positive outcome for that girl. The experience that really changed my worldview going out to Kununurra was when we set up this scavenger hunt, and I set up what was called the education station, and the kids would come around in groups, and I had a little blackboard set up, and I would ask them some just general knowledge questions that I thought someone in their age range would be able to answer for me. And so I'd ask the 15-year-old kids something like, what's 7 times 7? Or name for me two pieces of fruit two pieces of fruit. And it was astounding. They couldn't answer these basic questions for me. And the first question I always asked them was, how old are you? So that I knew what sort of general questions to ask them. But the question I really should have asked them is, how many days a week do you go to school? And it was a real aha moment for me, because I didn't realise that they didn't go to school, these kids, or they went to school once a year or once a term. So that really made me wake up and realise how lucky we are here to have such a big emphasis on education, and how good our education is here. They don't have those facilities available to them out there, and there's not people telling them to go to school and telling them how important education and schooling is.